Hey everyone, and welcome back to Unheard. I'm your host, and today we have a confession that will completely destroy everything you think you know about love, betrayal, and justice. This confession landed in my inbox 3 days ago, and I'm still processing what I read. The subject line was simple. I did something unforgivable, and I'm not sorry. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button because what you're about to hear will leave you speechless. And when this story reveals its final secret, please leave a comment telling me what you would have done. If you'd like to share your own confession, send it to the email that pops up on your screen. Every story matters, and your secret is safe with us. This confession came from an anonymous woman. What starts as a story about survival becomes something much darker, something that will make you question who really deserves your sympathy. Let's see what she has to say. Here's what she wrote. I need to tell someone what I've done, what I'm still doing, what I plan to keep doing for the rest of my life. Everyone sees me as the victim in my story, the poor wife who suffered in silence, the woman who deserved better, the one who finally found happiness after years of pain. They're not wrong about the suffering part. But if they knew the whole truth, if they knew what I was capable of when pushed too far, they'd run. I used to think I was a good person, moral, honest, someone who believed in doing the right thing even when it was hard. I was wrong about myself, so wrong that it's almost funny. Let me tell you about my marriage, about the 3 years that broke me, and then let me tell you what I did about it. By the end, you'll understand why some people shouldn't be pushed past their breaking point. She continues. Let me start with David, my husband, the man everyone thinks is perfect. Successful lawyer, 6-figure salary, drives a BMW, takes me on expensive vacations, the kind of man other women openly envy me for. You're so lucky, they'd say. He's such a catch. If only they knew what happens behind closed doors. The first time David cheated, I found hotel receipts. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. He laughed. Actually laughed at my pain. What did you expect? He said. Look at yourself. Look at what you've become. Boring. Predictable. Nothing special. Did you really think I'd stay faithful to this? That should have been my wake-up call. I should have left. But David had spent 2 years systematically destroying my self-esteem, isolating me from friends, making me financially dependent on him. I had nowhere to go, so I stayed. And he got worse. The second affair was with my best friend. He told me over dinner at a restaurant casually, like he was discussing the weather. She and I have been seeing each other, he said. She understands what a real woman should be. When I started crying, he got annoyed. Stop being so dramatic. This is why no one can stand you. But here's the part that will make your skin crawl. David didn't just cheat. He made sure I knew about every single affair. He'd leave evidence where I'd find it. Bring women to our house when I was out. Make phone calls in front of me. He was feeding off my pain. My humiliation was his entertainment. For 3 years I lived in hell, but I thought it was my hell to endure. I had no idea that someone was watching, someone who would change everything. Once David realized I knew and wasn't going to leave, the psychological torture began. And I mean torture. This wasn't just a cheating husband. This was a man who enjoyed breaking me down piece by piece. He started bringing his affairs into our daily life. Phone calls during dinner that he'd take in front of me, laughing and flirting while I sat there. Perfume on his clothes that he'd make no effort to hide. Credit card charges for jewelry and flowers that I never received. You should be grateful, he told me once. Other women appreciate what you take for granted. But the worst part was the gaslighting. When I'd get upset about obvious evidence of his cheating, he'd tell me I was delusional, that I was seeing things that weren't there, that my mental health was concerning and maybe I should see a therapist. He isolated me from my friends by making scenes at every social gathering. He'd embarrass me in front of people, make cutting comments about my appearance, my intelligence, my worth as a wife. Soon, people stopped inviting us places, or maybe they just stopped inviting me. My family loved David. When I tried to hint at problems in our marriage, they'd brush it off. All marriages have rough patches, my mother would say. You're lucky to have such a successful husband. David made sure I was financially dependent on him. He convinced me to quit my job. What's the point of me making good money if my wife has to work? Then controlled every dollar I spent. I had to ask permission to buy groceries, clothes, anything beyond basic necessities. For 3 years, I lived in this prison, watching my husband parade his affairs in front of me while everyone around us believed we had the perfect marriage. Knowing I was trapped because I had no money, no job, no support system, nowhere to go. I was dying inside. Literally dying. I'd lost weight, couldn't sleep, jumped at shadows. I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. But then something happened that changed everything. Jake was everything David wasn't. Where David was loud and commanding, Jake was quiet and thoughtful. Where David demanded attention, Jake gave it. Where David took, Jake offered. He was David's business partner's younger brother, fresh out of college, sweet and earnest in a way that made me remember what kindness looked like. When David brought him to a dinner party at our house, Jake was the only person who asked me about my interests, my thoughts, my life before David. "You seem sad," he said during a quiet moment in the kitchen. "Are you okay?" I almost cried. No one had asked me that question in years. David hired Jake for some consulting work, something about marketing strategies that I didn't really understand. What I did understand was that Jake would be coming to our house regularly for meetings, that I'd have someone to talk to, someone who saw me as a human being instead of a broken thing to be tolerated. At first, it was innocent. Jake would arrive early for meetings and we'd chat while waiting for David. He'd stay late sometimes, helping me clean up after business dinners. We'd talk about books, movies, life. All the conversations I'd forgotten were possible. Jake never made me feel stupid or worthless. He listened when I spoke. He laughed at my jokes. He treated me like I mattered. I started looking forward to his visits more than I'd looked forward to anything in years. I'd plan what to wear, what to cook, what topics might come up in conversation. For a few hours every week, I felt like myself again. I told myself it was friendship, harmless conversation with someone who was kind to me. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't notice how he looked at me, how his eyes lingered when he thought I wasn't watching, how he found excuses to be near me, to brush against my hand when passing me things. The first time he told me I was beautiful, I started crying. Not pretty tears, ugly, desperate sobs that came from somewhere deep inside me. "Hey," he said, stepping closer. "Hey, what's wrong?" "No one's called me beautiful in 3 years," I whispered. That's when everything changed. I wish I could say it happened gradually, that we fought against our feelings, that it was some great romantic struggle. The truth is messier than that. The truth is that when Jake kissed me, gently, carefully, like I was something precious that might break, I felt like I was waking up from a coma. Every nerve in my body came alive. Every part of me that David had slowly killed started breathing again. We made love in my guest room while David was at the office. Afterwards, I cried again, not from guilt, but from relief. Relief that I could still feel pleasure, still feel desired, still feel human. "I'm sorry," Jake whispered, misunderstanding my tears. "I shouldn't have." "Don't apologize," I said. "Please don't apologize for making me feel alive." The affair began that day. For 6 months, Jake became my lifeline to sanity. Every Tuesday and Thursday when he came for business meetings, we'd steal hours together. He'd hold me like I was precious. He'd tell me I was smart, funny, beautiful. He'd listen to my dreams and encourage me to believe they were possible. For the first time in my marriage, I felt worthy of love. David never suspected. Why would he? In his mind, I was a broken, pathetic woman lucky to have him. The idea that someone might actually want me was probably incomprehensible to him. But Jake did want me. More than want. He loved me. And I loved him back with an intensity that scared me. "Leave him," Jake would whisper after we made love. "We could have a real life together." "I can't," I'd say. "You don't understand what he'd do to both of us." But even as I said it, I was starting to believe it might be possible. Maybe I could escape. Maybe I could have a real relationship with someone who actually valued me. Then I missed my period. I stared at those 2 pink lines for 20 minutes, my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold the test. Pregnant. After years of careful birth control with David, after 6 months of mostly protected sex with Jake, this moment had finally come. I tried to calculate the timeline. David and I had been intimate twice in the past 2 months. Perfunctory, obligatory sex that felt more like a chore than intimacy. Jake and I had been together 3 days ago, and 5 days before that. And countless times throughout the month, the math was devastating and clear. This baby wasn't David's. I sat on the bathroom floor. Not my bathroom, I couldn't risk David finding the test, and tried to figure out what to do. The smart thing would be to terminate the pregnancy quietly, and never tell anyone what had happened. Clean slate, no complications, no devastating secrets to maintain. But as I sat there with my hand on my stomach, I realized something that changed everything. I wanted this baby. Jake's baby. The child of the only man who'd ever truly loved me. The one good thing that had come from the hell of my marriage. And that's when the plan started forming. The terrible, perfect plan that would either be my salvation or my damnation. I was going to keep the baby. I was going to let David think it was his. And I was going to use his love for this child to finally have power over him, instead of being his victim. What I did next still makes me sick when I think about it. Not because I regret it, but because I discovered I was capable of such calculated manipulation. I went home and seduced my husband. For the first time in months, I initiated sex with David. I made it passionate, memorable, the kind of encounter he'd definitely remember. Then I did it again 3 days later, and again a week after that. I was creating a timeline, building evidence, constructing a narrative that would make this pregnancy seem unquestionably his. 2 weeks later, I told David I was late. I let him convince me to take a pregnancy test. I acted surprised, overwhelmed, scared. All the emotions he'd expect from an unplanned pregnancy. His reaction was perfect. Shock, then pride, then this possessive excitement about becoming a father. For the first time since I'd known him, David treated me like I was precious, like I mattered. "We're going to be parents," he said, his hand on my still flat stomach. "I can't believe it. This is amazing." I felt nauseated, and not from morning sickness. Jake's reaction was more complicated. When I told him I was pregnant but planned to let David think it was his, he was devastated. "That's my baby," he said, and the pain in his voice almost broke my resolve. "I know," I said, "but if I tell the truth now, David will destroy both of us. He'll make sure you never see the baby. He'll ruin your career, your family relationships. He'll make our lives hell just because he can." "So, what are you suggesting?" We wait. We let him think he's the father. I get through the pregnancy with his support instead of his abuse. After the baby is born, after I have some legal protection, then we figure out how to be together. It was a lie, of course. I had no intention of ever telling David the truth, but Jake didn't need to know that yet. Pregnancy with David was like living in an alternate universe. Suddenly, I was precious cargo. He stopped cheating, or at least stopped being obvious about it. He cooked for me, bought me prenatal vitamins, attended every doctor's appointment with pride and excitement. "Look at our baby," he'd say at ultrasounds, squeezing my hand while staring at the screen. "Look how perfect she is." We found out at 20 weeks that we were having a girl. David cried, actually cried with joy, and immediately started making plans. College funds, bedroom decorations, family traditions he wanted to establish. It was the happiest I'd ever seen him. And every moment of his joy felt like a knife in my chest. Jake and I barely saw each other during the pregnancy. It was too risky, and I couldn't bear the guilt of being intimate with him while carrying his baby and living with David. But we texted constantly. He was my emotional support through every milestone, every moment of panic about what we were doing. When I was 7 months along, David surprised me with a fully decorated nursery. Pink walls, white furniture, a rocking chair by the window where he planned to read bedtime stories. He'd spent weeks working on it in secret. "I want her to know she's loved from the moment she comes home," he said. That night, I locked myself in the bathroom and sobbed. Labor was 36 hours of agony that had nothing to do with physical pain. David was there the entire time, holding my hand, coaching my breathing, telling me how proud he was of me. When Emma was born, perfect, healthy, beautiful Emma, David was the first to hold her. The look on his face was pure love, pure wonder, pure paternal joy. "She's perfect," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "She's absolutely perfect." But I could see it immediately. Emma had Jake's dark hair, his nose, his chin. As she got older, the resemblance would only become more obvious. Jake came to the hospital that evening to meet his daughter. David proudly introduced him to our little girl, completely oblivious that he was handing Emma to her real father. The look that passed between Jake and me over Emma's head was everything. Love, grief, guilt, terror, joy, all wrapped up in one devastating moment of recognition. "She's beautiful," Jake said, his voice thick with emotion. "Absolutely beautiful." He held his daughter for exactly 3 minutes before David took her back, eager to show her off to the nurses. Emma is 3 years old now. 3 years of watching David parent a child who isn't his. 3 years of Jake playing family friend to his own daughter. 3 years of the most elaborate deception I've ever maintained. And here's the part that makes me a monster. It's worked perfectly. David is an amazing father. He adores Emma, spoils her responsibly, reads to her every night, teaches her new words and skills with endless patience. Loving her has made him a better man than he ever was as a husband. The cruel irony is that he's become everything I always wanted him to be. Kind, attentive, emotionally present, but only for Emma. With me, he's returned to his old patterns. The affairs have started again, the casual cruelty, the assumption that I should be grateful for his presence in my life. But now I have Emma. I have Jake. Even if our relationship exists only in stolen glances and hidden text messages, I have power over David that he doesn't even know about. Jake sees Emma regularly. Uncle Jake comes for dinner twice a week, takes her to the park, reads her stories, teaches her to draw. I watch him struggle not to overstep his role, not to show too much affection, not to claim the relationship he has every right to. The resemblance is becoming impossible to ignore. Emma has Jake's eyes, his smile, his gentle mannerisms. Last month, David's sister commented on how different Emma looks from their family. "She must get it from your side," David said to me. "None of our features." "Genetics are strange," I replied, my heart pounding. People would say what I've done is unforgivable, that I've stolen David's right to know the truth, robbed Jake of his relationship with his daughter, built Emma's entire existence on a lie. They'd be right, but they didn't live my life. They didn't spend 3 years being systematically destroyed by someone who was supposed to love them. They didn't feel their sense of self disappear piece by piece until they weren't sure they even existed anymore. David created the conditions that led to this. His cruelty, his affairs, his psychological torture. He broke me down until lying became survival. He taught me that love was conditional, that I had no value, that I should be grateful for scraps of basic human decency. Jake gave me back my humanity. Loving him saved my life in the most literal sense. And Emma exists because of that love, that salvation, that reminder that I was worthy of being cherished. Yes, I'm living a lie. Yes, I'm deceiving everyone around me. Yes, I'm capable of psychological manipulation that scares even me. But I'm alive. Emma exists. Jake knows he created something beautiful, even if he can't claim it openly. And David? David gets to be the father he always should have been, just to a child who isn't his. Maybe that's justice. Maybe it's cruelty. Maybe it's both. I don't know anymore. I just know I'd do it all again. I used to think monsters were born that way. Evil from the start, twisted by nature rather than circumstance. Now I know better. Monsters are made, carefully crafted through pain and betrayal, and the slow realization that playing by the rules only gets you destroyed. David made me into this. His cruelty, his systematic destruction of my self-worth, his enjoyment of my pain. He created the woman who could lie to his face every single day while he raises another man's child. The worst part? I'm not sorry he made me this way. Because this version of me, the liar, the manipulator, the woman who can smile while hiding devastating secrets, this version of me survives. This version of me gets what she wants. This version of me wins. 3 years ago, I was a victim. Now I'm something else entirely. Something that would terrify the woman I used to be. But that woman was weak. That woman let herself be destroyed. I refuse to be destroyed ever again. So judge me if you want. Call me a monster, a villain, a woman who's lost her moral compass. You're probably right. But I have a daughter who exists because of love, not obligation. I have a man who sees me as worthy of devotion. I have power over someone who tried to break me. And if that makes me a monster, then maybe being a monster isn't the worst thing in the world. Wow. A woman who was destroyed, who found love, and who made a choice that affects 3 lives every single day. Victim or villain? I honestly don't know. That's why Unheard exists, for the stories that don't fit into neat moral categories. If this confession moved you, hit that like button and subscribe. Share it with someone who can handle difficult conversations about right and wrong. And please, leave a comment below. Tell me if you sympathize with her or condemn her. Let the woman who shared this know her truth has been heard. If you have a story that's been weighing on you, submit it to the email on your screen. Every confession matters, no matter how complicated. Remember, we're all capable of choices that surprise us. Sometimes the people we become in pursuit of survival are people we never imagined we could be. Until next time, this is Unheard.